So I hear some sunnies. Thank you for your condolences. So anybody else want to unmute and shout themselves? They can type it in the chat. We got some good sunnies. Everyone has some good moods right now, which is great.
I'll share, Asia.
Yes.
So what is that? What is the weather like next to the sun?
This one?
Blue skies.
That's clear skies. So I'm sorry, I probably didn't explain it too well, but we have sunny, clear skies, partly cloudy. Maybe you have a little fog. Maybe it's a little windy outside for you. Maybe you got a little rain. Maybe it's a light rain, or maybe you got a thunderstorm. You know, we all go through our storms, our seasons of storm. Someone said partly cloudy, a little foggy.
Of the kitchen.
I just like to do this, you know, maybe not everybody likes to put a mood. Somebody will say, oh, I'm okay. Well, I like to dig a little deeper without, you know, pushing too hard on how everyone's feeling right now. So good. Just something.
I wanted to say that.
Yeah, please.
The one with the birds and I guess it's blue skies.
Clear skies, yeah.
It's clear skies. Well, I don't say blue sky, but I feel blue sky.
Blue sky.
Not that it's blue. I'm feeling blue or anything, but I felt as though that I've been through so much, and now I'm beginning to see the end of the rainbow, so to speak. You know, I feel blue skies about to become sunny days or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Nice. I was gonna put one with a rainbow in there, but I was like, I think I have enough already. But next time, I might put that rainbow in there.
So I see Asia. I'm sorry. That's why. I'm sorry. I had wanted to share. That's why I wanted you to explain what that one next to the sun was, because I was kind of feeling that. So I do apologize. Well, I have nothing to apologize for, but I wanted to share. So I kind of concur with Beverly, like the clear skies, like I'm in between the clear skies and the sunny and cloudy skies. And you ever had those in between days. So I'm starting to see, and when I look at that, I see the birds rising and everything like that. So I feel like I'm in a stage of where things are clearing up, things are starting to come into perspective, but yet there's a little cloud in there because it's the unknown, what's behind the cloud sometimes. So I'm there. That's where I'm at.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing.
Well, I don't know. I said, this is Diane. I don't know. I said sunny, but then I had to kind of reevaluate. I'm sunny because of my business, but then also I'm sunny and I'm partly cloudy because, my son was murdered on March 13th in 2004. And then his birthday is the 23rd this week. So earlier today, I heard either yesterday or today, that song "I'll Be Missing You" by what's his name, P. Diddy, and that brought back a lot of memories. I started thinking of him. So I guess somewhere I've got a little bit of cloud, but I kind of feel like clear skies will come like later on this month.
Yeah, good, awesome. Would anyone else like to share? I know someone changed to, someone's cloud. I see fog, partly sunny. All right, would anyone else like to share before we move on? Yeah, all right, awesome. All right, so like Diane said that recently Miss USA, Chesley Chris, passed away via suicide, and she was really impacted by this. So I think this was kind of prompted this workshop today. She was only 30 years old. It seems like she had like everything going for herself. But the thing about suicide and mental health, it does not discriminate whether you got a lot going on, a little bit going on in between. It doesn't matter your race, your creed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't discriminate. So it impacts us all. So I think that this particular incident kind of really inspired Diane to want to do this workshop. And this really resonated with me because I know that I've had days in my past where I contemplated suicide and I had a plan and everything ready to go. So it kind of like hit home for me in a sense. And I put on here her last Instagram post. I'm sorry. Her quote was, "May this day bring you rest and peace." And who knows if that was, her cry for help, because she had committed suicide, I think a couple days after she had posted this particular quote on Instagram. So, and I think as being, young Black women as well, we have so many things going on and we're self-proclaimed strong women, strong Black women, and society kind of pushes that on us that we have to be strong. And we claim that for ourselves, but sometimes we don't always have to be strong. There's time to be strong, but there's also time to be vulnerable and express what's going on with you. Because even her mom said she had no idea that her daughter was struggling with depression. She was a high functioning depressed person who was going through depression. So she seemed like she had it all together to her family and put on this brave face. But internally, she was struggling. And who knows why she was struggling? Maybe she didn't have a safe space to say like, oh, I'm dealing with X, Y, and Z. Maybe she was dealing with that stigma of, oh, I can't really talk to anybody about this because I'm supposed to be strong. So that's what kind of prompted this workshop. So before we move on, we're going to do a quick poll question. And I'll please respond. So our first one will be, I have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, or do I know someone who has been diagnosed with a mental health disorder? If you can resonate with either of those options, please select which one.
Can you repeat that?
So there's a poll question up, and the two not questions, but statements is, can you resonate with either the first one, I have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, or two, I know someone who's been diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And I think we have about a couple people. All right, I'll leave it up for a little bit. Some people are not participating, but that's okay. That's fine. So this is all anonymous.
Asia?
Yes.
Asia. It seems as though it's not functioning.
It's not functioning.
Yeah. So it says question 1, 7 of 7.
Can't pick one.
Right. Doesn't allow me.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I relaunch it again. Let's try it. Did you get it this time?
So how? Nope.
Yes, I see it now.
You see it now? Okay.
It's not letting me do it. Okay, here it is. Wait a minute. No, that's the.
I'm sorry.
So it should pop up right on the
yeah, it should pop up right on there. But if you want to type your answer in the chat, I'm sorry about that. I hope my other ones work. Or we'll just have to, type our answers in the chat. That's fine.
That's fine. I got mine.
Sometimes technology's on my side, sometimes not.
Yeah,
and I practiced this a couple times before I presented it. So anyway, so a lot of people who responded said they know someone who's been diagnosed. A couple of responses said they had been diagnosed themselves, which is just good to know, like, if anyone has personal experience or if they have a family member, a friend that they, want to learn more about to support. So that's good. Good to know. All right. Awesome. All right. So moving right along back to our PowerPoint. Awesome. So mental health, and I hope everyone knows that mental health refers to everybody. Everybody has a mind. We have heart health, we have gut health, we have this health, we have mental health. Everybody has a mind. So we need to be making sure that we're taking care of it, right? So it's essential to everyone to have overall good health and well-being, and mental health is one of those things that we need to make sure that we're taking care of. Even if we don't particularly suffer from a mental illness, it's always good to maintain positive mental health, make sure you're staying on top of it, and making sure that you're doing the right things to keep yourself going, keep your mental right. Mental health includes our emotional and psychological and social well-being. It's the state of our mental health affects our physical health, the way we think, the actions we take, and the way that we interact with other people. Some things that can contribute to our mental health include our genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as abuse or traumatic experience, and any family of mental health problems. So for me, with my experience and talking to my doctors and such, I am both impacted by my genes and brain chemistry. I don't really have any trauma per se, but I do have family history of mental illness. So those two kind of affect me most in my journey of what I've learned as I've been going to therapy and seeing therapists and psychiatrists and doing all that work to kind of get my mental health back together. So hopefully we're going to try to do another poll. So we'll have another question going. So just answer number one, if you can. Number one is mental illness is caused by A, personal weakness, B, lack of willpower, or C, a number of risk factors, including stressful or traumatic life events, long-lasting health conditions such as heart disease or cancer. Can you guys see that or no? Just need to do question one.
Oh, Asia, I don't see the questions. Where would they be?
They should have popped up, but let me try again. If not, then we're just gonna keep it moving. Did it pop up? No.
No, I saw the other ones. I didn't see these. So what is the question again? Oh, yes, it did. I'm sorry. I'm looking in the wrong place.
Can you see it? It's question one. Somebody unmute and let me know or type in the chat. Can you see it? Is it not showing up?
I see mine.
It showed up and then I closed it out to unmute myself and now it's gone again.
All right, we're just having a boatload of technology problems today. Anyhow, I'll relaunch.
I think mine's is user related. There you go.
We're only answering one, right, Asia?
Answer number one, yes.
Are we supposed to hit submit once we answer it?
Yes. Just try that.
Yeah, you would have to answer all 10 before you
got to
hit
answer
submit.
all 10. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, lesson learned today about.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm answering these questions. Yeah.
Go ahead and answer it, and then we'll probably discuss the results a little later. So
okay.
We won't take up too much time.
Answer
My apologies, everyone.
That's fine. No, I'm glad you asked these questions. Because one or two of them I didn't know.
Yeah, just something to think about as we're going through the PowerPoint here, the presentation.
Like how much it costs.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the answers. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, and I think I know who it's coming from. Love you, family.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
All right. So while I think just a couple of people are answering questions, we'll get back to
It's very engaging.
Thank you. I wanted to come back and forth. I don't want to just talk to you the whole time. All right. So moving along, since we know that everyone has mental health and that we should stay on top of it, that we should take care of it, we'll talk a little bit about mental illness. So mental illness is also referred to as mental health disorders, and it refers to a wide range of mental health conditions that affect your mood, your thinking, and behavior. Some examples of mental health illnesses include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. Many people who have mental health concerns from time to time, but mental health concerns can become a mental illness when ongoing symptoms and signs of those can cause frequent stress and affect your ability to function. A mental illness can honestly make you miserable. It can cause problems in your daily life, such as your ability to attend school, your ability to go to work, and it can impact your ability to maintain and create relationships. So as some of you know, or some maybe not know, that we have a stigma in our community regarding mental health. It's kind of frowned upon to talk about it sometimes, not everywhere, but I know a lot of people in our community don't either believe it, they stigmatize it. They just kind of brush it under the rug like it's something that we don't deal with. I can remember sometimes people have referred to depression as a rich person's problem or disorder, or white person's disorder, like as if Black people can't be depressed or go through any other mental health problems. That's just in my personal experience, not everybody, but that's what I've heard within passing and stuff like that. So feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat. Why do you think there's such a stigma in our community regarding mental health? You can unmute yourself, raise your hand, type in the chat.
Especially lack of knowledge.
Yes, lack of knowledge.
I definitely feel like, well, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like, especially growing up in a minority household, you know, African-American household, is definitely that stigma of you have to push through it. You have like, you can't be depressed, you can't be upset type of thing, or you get in trouble for being upset or being depressed, or like, they always call it being lazy when you honestly just don't feel the need to get out of bed and things of that nature. It's like we always have to prosper for that simple fact that throughout generations, like we always just put behind, so they feel the need that we have to prosper, we have to do this, we have to do that. So it's just that mindset of we have to, instead of like actually checking on each other's mentals.
Yep, I agree. I definitely agree. That's good. Yeah. Yep. And there was I think it was a TikTok video that went around a few years ago, maybe recently, where it's like Black parents, when you're depressed and you tell them that they're depressed, they'll say, oh, you better depress yourself and get in there and wash the dishes. I mean, at that time, you know, it was funny, but when you really think about it, some parents do react that way when their child could be really going through depression and they just brush it off as this, you know, not important, or they not really depressed because, you know, of their age, or they might not even, you know, believe them in that sense. Beverly, you said lack of knowledge, which is true. Yes. Some people don't really understand it. They don't really know any information or have anything to relate it to. So that can definitely be why we have a stigma.
Asia.
Yes.
Hi, this is Stephanie.
Hi.
I wanted to say that it's really interesting when you were talking about that with the dynamics in a family. I know, like, I teach on a collegiate level and have been for years, and generationally, this is something that I think we see a lot. The generations tend to think that the ones coming behind them are weaker. And there's actually a scripture in the Bible too about we being weaker and wiser. And so you look at these people, the young people in the generation that are behind you, and it's like they can't take anything. It's like everything just makes them feel depressed. Everything is like some big issue to them. Everything is like, oh, they just take it to some sort of major level. And you can really become very jaded with that, because the younger generations just seem not to be able to handle anything. Like they have no life skills. They have no real sense of grit or how to get through or bear through an issue. And I think that really is a problem, that sometimes the older we get, or the generation that we're in, we tend to look at younger people as being weak and as being very just touchy about everything. And so we don't take, if they really do have a serious mental illness or some mental illness at all, we would not take that seriously. It would just be like, yeah, okay, that's your generation. You're
Right.
always
Yeah.
talking about something.
No, I agree with that. And I have a love-hate relationship with Gen Z, but I think they're just doing such an amazing job of pushing the mental health and raising a lot of awareness of a lot of like social injustice and such like that. So they really push it forward. Like, I'm dealing with mental health, this is what I'm going through. They're very open about things. So I hopefully, with that generation coming up and being very open and vocal about things like that, I hope, that continues to change. The stigma within our community continues to change. I think someone else raised their hand again who wants to add, or maybe not.
Well, to add on to like what she was saying, I definitely believe like that whole mindset, for the simple fact that as time goes on, there's definitely new technology and different ways you can look at it. For the simple fact, like now we have these social media platforms and bigger social media platforms. So it's just like the interactions and actually, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like time changes. So that's why I feel like we get accustomed to certain generational things. So that's why like, okay, we can't be as strong as they were, because it's just like certain things they went through, we aren't going through type of things. And it's like feels more serious to us, I feel like.
Right. And I always say, especially if you have children or younger kids in your household or family members, is that we often think like what they're going through is not a big problem. But in their perspective, in their world, that's the biggest problem that they could be facing right now. But just to say to brush them off or to look past their problems, that's just setting up an environment of we shouldn't be communicating, we shouldn't be talking about our feelings, we don't have that safe space with our parents to share how we're feeling, right? And that starts kind of in childhood. If I remember, if you crying, oh, you're soft, especially our young men, oh, men don't cry, suck it up, you'll be okay. Those kind of I don't even know what the word I'm thinking about. Well, like those kind of interactions are fostering environments where our children can express themselves. They grow up to be adults who can't communicate their emotions, can't even, build healthy relationships because they can't communicate, because at that young age, that was so ingrained of, you just suck it up, suck it up. You all right, just suck it up. You're a big boy, you're a big girl, just suck it up. So, I think that we have kind of created that environment where we're not allowing our kids to express themselves and to talk about those emotions. So I think that kind of does them a hindrance in their social emotional well-being.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And also, I remember years ago when families would sit around the table at dinner time and have conversation. How was your day at school? And just the family unit. And now I can remember, teaching, and I would say to the kids, well, when you go home and when you're having dinner with your family, I'm like, what are you talking about with my family? We're going to McDonald's. There's no sit down, eat, have a conversation. So that has changed the dynamics of, I think the need for that conversation about things that are going on in your life. And now, a lot of young people are they have to figure it out themselves, in addition to the fact, I think like Janai was saying about technology, and that really has brought about isolation. you know, among young people and adults as well.
Absolutely.
And Asia, I also think that the stigma comes from a lack of resources. So back in the day, rich people or white folk could always afford to see the psychologist. And, you know, that's always been their way to settle their issues, to see a psychologist. Depending upon how severe a mental situation is, they could always put them away. Whereas in the Black community, that didn't happen. They would send you to in a back room upstairs or downstairs, you know, and say, that's Uncle so-and-so who got this problem, whatever, where Uncle so-and-so is suffering from depression, or Uncle so-and-so may have, you know, a drug or alcohol problem, whereas, you know, they can't function without something to calm their nerves, or you know what I mean? But nowadays, you know, people didn't want to look like that. They didn't want to look like forgive me for saying it like this, but it's how they would say that they didn't want to look like the crazy uncle or sound like the crazy uncle. You know, they were quick to use the word crazy. And so people would hide their issues. You know, they would they would deal with their situation silently or behind closed doors, whereas they needed help to, you know, to be treated, or to even just to talk, because sometimes just talking to somebody is, well, what you know, do with psychologists and whatnot would be of help. But the stigma that's attached comes from the lack of resources and, you know, finances and stuff like that.
Asia.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Just coming from a different point of view. I used to work several years ago in an emergency room department, and there's a stigma attached to emergency room patients that are brought into the facility suffering from a mental illness, because when they come up, a family member comes up to the front desk for the protection of the patient. We often had to call security. Now you have to think, this is an emergency room waiting lobby where there's other people. Security has to take them to the side. I mean, they wouldn't put them in a separate room. This is the family member, wand them down, like, to make sure they didn't have any sharp objects. They couldn't take a pocketbook, cell phone, or anything. And then they were subjected to only spending maybe 5 minutes. So they had to be escorted by security back to a certain area of the emergency room to speak with the patient, and then they had to be escorted out and given back. This is family members given their personal belongings. And there is a stigma attached when you have the general public sitting in a public area looking at someone that has to go through that entire procedure just to go see someone that's in an emergency room.
Yeah. And it, you know, if you are in the emergency room and you really didn't know the situation or what the person is going through, or have never seen that or exposed to that, yeah, you'd be looking at them like, you know, what's going on? Like, why, you know, X, Y, and Z is going on. But I think with, you know, more awareness and more education just to the general public, I think it would be helpful. So in those situations, that can be helpful and get more understanding and more empathy towards those people. And also when you talk about the emergency room and the police officers, and I know that's another conversation, but having them have training on people who are going through these crises and how to approach those people and how to handle those people, besides thinking that, okay, I understand they may be a danger to themselves or someone else, but how to de-escalate that in a proper way. I think, you know, that would be helpful as well. I think Dr. Stephanie had her hand raised as well. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to say something with the person that was, I think it was Beverly, that was just talking about poverty, lack of money. And I think that's so
true. And also we have, well, I thought about this one time and I used milk as an example, that when you come from a poor family and you have a child who's pouring some milk and they spill that milk, the reaction from the parent was oftentimes far greater in terms of traumatizing that child, because they may have had more children to feed, they didn't have the money to get more milk. And so if you spilled something or you dropped something and you caused some sort of issue for that family, then you might receive more trauma in that. And poverty, whether, regardless of who we are, often affects how we are raised, how we're treated early on, and the amount of trauma that you receive when you are growing up, because you might think that people are very, the way that people act or overreact when something happens is amplified tremendously because you don't have money to replace things. And so you react more strongly with that child. And I think that was a big problem for African Americans early on, because we really did not have a lot. And so our children were subjected to perhaps more abusive type attitudes than what some white children would have been.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Stephanie, can I take that a step further? Even thinking about, taking it from a no longer a poverty situation, but just think about days that anybody out there, you had a long day at work, you had just a long day in general. You might have even been sitting in social services trying to get BGE not to turn your lights off. And you come home to your children who may or may not have a good day at school, and you want the house cleaned, you want the dishes put away, you want this, that, and that. And think about your attitude towards them when they could have had just as stressful day as you did. But you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about, you got bills to be paid, you got a boss on your back, and you're not thinking about your children. That also goes into mental health. You don't have to have a mental health disorder to be affected mentally by the stress that you have going on in your life. So that's another thing that, my coworker calls it Black mother syndrome, but it's not just Black mothers, it's everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Anybody else would like to share or open up? All right. We'll keep it moving right along. So yeah, all those things you guys brought up were great points, and I love the discussion. I love the back and forth. I appreciate you guys who are interacting with me. So I love to hear your thoughts and feedback as well without me just talking to you. But yeah, the stigma of it all kind of hinders us, not us, but people in general, of getting help, seeking treatment, talking about it openly. And I kind of do these workshops so we can get those conversations started, because I don't want people to suffer in silence like I had to. I want us to be, more open and more welcoming and understand, what we are going through. I know we all going through a lot, but just to take it that step farther, if somebody is, having a mental health crisis, that we can be there to lend a hand or give them some direction, or just be their comfort without, judging them or making them feel bad about how they're feeling. And then we also, going back to the stigma thing, that those terms, like you said, what have we been calling people who suffer from mental illness? Like we say, we talk about, we call them crazy. There's so many different stereotypes. We call them psycho, they a nut job. There's a wacko, like different terms that we use, even like talking about it and, general conversation, normal conversation. And I was just thinking to myself, like, when we hear about somebody committing suicide, or if we know that we suspect a family member does have mental health issues, how are we talking about them? And how are we talking about them in front of our young people? And that kind of creates also that cycle of, if we're talking bad about a person who is going through some mental health problems, and our children are overhearing it, well, and they're feeling that same kind of way or could resonate with the person in that crisis, oh, I can't go to mom, I can't go to dad and tell them how I'm feeling because they're going to think I'm crazy too. So just be, mindful of our conversations, how we talk about people. I think we should just, just some things that we should be mindful of. All right. So I really like this comic. It said, I want to talk about my mental health, but I'm scared I'll be judged. The people around me won't be supportive or understanding. It could hurt my career. I don't want people to pity me, and I'm scared it will define me. So some things that people might be afraid of to talk about, or why they don't mention, why they don't say anything, why they do suffer in silence. These are some of the reasons for it. So I thought that was something I could share with you guys. Alrighty. So just some statistics across the US that I found is 1 in 5 adults experience mental illness. And then more than 50% will be diagnosed with mental illness or disorder at some time in their life. 1 in 5 children either or currently or in some time in their life will be diagnosed with a debilitating mental illness. And 1 in 25 Americans live with serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, bipolar, or major depressive disorder. And then some statistics in our Black community, just to summarize it, is that African Americans are more likely to suffer from serious psychological distress than white counterparts. Just thinking about, being a human itself is very stressful. And then if we reflect about what has happened in the last 5 or 6 years ago with racial tensions rising, things happening with the police, like all that kind of, that kind of affects our mental health. I remember so many things like outside of COVID, and especially that time where we kept hearing that this Black person was murdered, this Black person, that takes a toll on our mental health. So that also, kind of pushes us to be more susceptible of having these kind of distresses, like psychological distress as well, because of other things that are coming on. And someone mentioned, yes, food, gas, the war, that stuff affects us mentally, even if we don't kind of recognize it. That does impact your mental health, especially when all you hear is bad news, bad news, bad news. And when you don't recognize those kind of things, you kind of fall into that kind of depression. Sometimes it will cause anxiety because some of these things are out of your control, and to keep worrying about it can make you anxious. So there's some things to think about when you are feeling those kind of ways, that that you gotta seek some ways to help calm yourself if you're just if you don't have a diagnosis in a sense, but something just to be mindful of your mental health in general. So we like to pay special attention to our teenagers, our young adults, and men, as they are more likely to commit suicide than any other population, especially in the Black community. Men are more times as likely to commit suicide than women are. And I also was thinking about our men in general. I see it's a lot of women on here. I know this is a women's group, but just in my past times having these workshops, it's always more women than men who come on and get on. So, some things to think about, check on the men. I know they like to be strong and not too vulnerable with us, but, just keep an eye on them as well. Alrighty, so we talked about that. So suicide is a very, heavy subject that not a lot of people like to talk about. Some people are afraid to talk about it, not even acknowledge it. Sometimes it's taboo, but why would we not talk about this subject when it's one of the leading causes of death in America, right? So I think it's important that we talk about it, we understand it, we not judge people who have thoughts of those suicidal ideations and thinking about committing suicide. I think it's our job to really support our community. I know we can't save everybody, but I think it starts within your home. If you can even, talk to people, your friends in your small circle. And I think having those conversations within your home, with your family, with close friends, I think that will make, a difference, So there are many factors that can cause people to want to commit suicide. There's a lot of risk factors and there's some warning signs. But we'll talk about that in a little bit more. So I think we already kind of touched on most of these things on the barriers to getting access to mental health resources and what keeps us from seeking help. And we talked about our stigma, we talked about access. If you live in certain parts of, just in general, if you live in certain parts of the country, you might not be able to have any mental health professionals close to where you live. You may not have a way to get there, right? But the good thing about technology now, I know that a lot of places are doing virtual visits. But then again, for our people in the lower income communities, that is also a difficult thing to have that access. Insurance is another one. I know that the insurance is getting better, quote unquote, but that's another conversation for another day. But even when you do have an insurance, if you have a higher deductible, you'll be paying out of pocket for those therapy sessions, or if you have to get prescriptions. Those are some things that we have to consider about too. It comes down to a money thing. If I have to go to, if the therapist recommended me to go to therapy once a week and I got to pay out of pocket sometimes over $100, then am I going to go to therapy if I can't afford it right now? Probably not. So we'll probably choose something else to pay for other than therapy. And then another thing is cultural competence. Which is there's such a need for more therapists of color, and even therapists there are therapists of, the other persuasion who does very well and can connect well with others. But I have found that some therapists, they can't make that connection with us, right? Or not that they can't, or if they don't try to, understand our perspective and our point of view. But I think that's been a big push for cultural competence, so that you can go to someone who will understand you, that can understand your perspective, your way of life, your culture. So I think that's a big part of why people might not want to go to therapy or might not want to seek help, because they might think that, oh, well, this person may not understand me and what I'm going through personally. All righty. So I won't read all of these, but if you want to take a picture or screenshot, I'll go over some signs of mental illness, some signs of depression, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit about suicide. And then we will probably be finishing up by that time. So just some signs of mental illness. Typically, it'll be a combination of these that persist over a longer period of time. If you know anybody who are dealing with this, or you yourself are dealing with this, I would say the first line of defense, I would say if you have a good relationship with your primary care doctor, maybe talk to your primary care doctor first, and then you can kind of get those referrals to other places like a psychotherapist or psychiatrist, or that kind of thing. Or you can just go right on in and seek some help from a mental health professional. So some signs of mental illness is being sad or withdrawn for a long period of time, making plans to end your life, having severe out of control risky behavior, difficulty concentrating, or excessive use of alcohol and drugs. Some other ones, drastic changes in your mood, hearing, seeing, believing things that aren't real, or intense worries or fear that could get in the way of your daily activities. like going to work, going to school, just functioning, your daily day to life. All right. And then here are some signs of depression. Again, same thing. Usually it's a combination of them, and they usually persist at least 2 weeks on more, that they persist, that you probably really want to go seek treatment or some help for if they persist more than 2 weeks. Fatigue, feelings of guilt, worthlessness, and helplessness, insomnia, sleeping too much, crankiness, restlessness are some of them, pessimism. And then some other ones, loss of interest in things that you once found pleasurable, overeating, not eating, if you're having constant aches and pains that just won't go away and they just kind of come out of nowhere without you having like injured yourself, digestive problems, and suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts. Someone raised their hand. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Asia, I just want to thank you for this list of signs of depression. After I lost my husband, he was killed in a tragic automobile accident. I had just about maybe half of those things, at least on the other page. The sleeping, the waking up, couldn't get a good night's sleep. Can you go back one page?
Of course. No problem.
Trouble concentrating, the restlessness, it's just a bunch of stuff, but I didn't tally it up to be depression. I just, thought it was part of the COVID, the pandemic, didn't understand it to be a part of grief. And depression is a major part of grief. And so is when you had this particular, presentation before, it brought it all to light, and it kind of helped me to work my way out of that bag. So again, thank you for that.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, I've gazed over your list, and I had to chuckle. I really did. I actually texted your aunt like, wow, I think, that I'm depressed. But so my question is, if you go down the list and you find that you can put numerous checks.
Yeah.
And you and I heard you said seek your
right. I would recommend first, like, I know some of these on the day-to-day, like, oh dang, I feel like this today, but
right.
Right, you know what I mean? Like, you can resonate with some of these like during your normal day-to-day. But I would say if you can check off a few of them and they're persisting for 2 weeks or more, I would say call your primary care doctor, try it again as soon as you can, and tell the doctor, like, hey, I've been feeling X, Y, and Z. And usually they'll do like a checklist with you, talk to you about, what's going on, and they can refer you to get, to go see a psychologist or psychiatrist to kind of dig further and see if you are depressed, or even if you're not depressed and you're feeling some of these things, maybe, therapy might be something that could help. And the doctor may also recommend some things, but we aren't really going to talk about it today, but some ways to kind of help with that. Like they'll recommend, get moving, exercise. I know that sounds so cliche, but those exercise, I know it does, but exercising, even just moving, go on a walk, it kind of releases those endorphins to help with that. But if you're like somebody like me who has a chemical imbalance, I can exercise till I can't exercise no more, but I kind of need some more help, right? So I would say if you are feeling these signs and symptoms, I would say go, check with your primary care doctor if you have that good relationship, or you can just go straight to schedule an appointment with a therapist, a psychologist, or psychiatrist, and they'll meet with you, do an evaluation on you, do your checklist, and talk to you about, what's going on to kind of, confirm that diagnosis, or they might even give you a list of recommendations to do first, see how you feel, and then come back and just kind of do a checkup. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. It does. And
Okay.
maybe we'll have a sidebar later.
Yeah. We'll have a sidebar. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't really go into treatment in this PowerPoint. I just kind of wanted to open the conversation, give you, get your feet wet, get you talking a little bit. But in my other workshops, we have talked about treatment options and all that kind of good stuff.
And Asia, I'd just like to add to that, if anybody knows someone or has to go see a doctor and they prescribe medicine, be sure to check the ingredients, because sometimes the medication can be addictive. I know situations where people have been prescribed medicine for anxiety and it was addictive.
Yeah. Some can, I would say that usually I would say if they're going to prescribe you something, go to a psychiatrist, because usually a psychiatrist will be able to work better with you to give you some, I know I'm going to other stuff too, but we'll give you something like, if you're suffering from anxiety, something, a low dose of medicine that you take every day to kind of like, that balances you out in a sense, and that you take a low dose every day, not like a Xanax. I think that's what you're probably referring to, like a Xanax. People abuse those, but I think I think now, from what my understanding, but if anybody on can correct me if I'm wrong, they're trying to move away from that and kind of get you started on something else, like something that will be in your system over time, so you don't have to take such a strong medicine. Typically they try to go through that route first, besides prescribing you Xanax. I know that's I think that's which one you were referring to.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we're almost done here. So some warning signs of suicide that can be indicators that a person can be in acute danger and may need help, urgent help. But before we go into those signs, just really quick, some risk factors that people may cause them to contemplate or attempt suicide. Obviously, mental disorders, alcohol and substance abuse, if they have a history of trauma and abuse, a family history of suicide, job and financial loss. And I think this is a big one. I feel like, and within recent years, I think if you heard a lot of like the murder suicide situations where usually it's like the father will kill the family and then kill himself because of some type of financial loss, or something that's been a big thing recently. I feel like, or I've been more aware of it. That's been a big thing as well. A loss of a relationship, and to go into that, as well as domestic violence. A lot of like murder suicides was revolved in domestic violence as well. What else? The stigma for asking for help sometimes is people's cultural and religious beliefs, that in some cultures it's a noble thing to commit suicide, to resolve a personal dilemma. And then exposure to others who have died by suicide. So there's a lot of people in your community that have committed suicide, whether it be in real life or in the media or internet. So some risk factors, we went through those. So some warning signs. People may talk about they wanting to kill themselves or wanting to die. They're feeling hopeless, like they're having no purpose. They may feel like they're trapped. They maybe talk about that they feel like they're a burden. They may have an increase in use of drug or alcohol. They may be sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. They could be showing rage or talking about seeking a revenge or displaying extreme moods. So these are, I mean, again, if you want to screenshot or take a picture, if you feel like somebody you know has been experiencing any of those, some things just to look out for. And if they are in crisis, I'm just going to leave you with the National Prevention Hotline number that's there, which is great, and they'll help during in the middle of a crisis as well. Obviously, you can call 911 as well, but I think if depending on the severity of the situation, I think the hotline would be a good resource. And not only do they have phone, you can also text if you don't want to, you know, verbally communicate what's going on. You can also text them as well for some free counseling during a crisis. I'll leave that up for a second. And then
can you go back to that screen for a minute?
Yep, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. And then last but not least, supporting others. Again, if you're not necessarily yourself going through this, you may not know someone else. So again, express your concern, reassure them, your family member or friend, that you care about them, that you're here for them. You know, again, always treat them with respect, compassion, empathy. You can ask questions, but it's great to just listen, for them just to get it out. Don't try to judge them. Educating yourself about mental health problems and don't discriminate against them. If you feel like your family member has been isolating themselves, try to reach out to them, try to invite them over, make plans with them. Don't be overbearing, but always, you know, just extend an invitation, check on them. I would say call versus text, because you can't really hear someone's voice. You know, if you really know the person, you kind of tell if like something's really wrong or bothering them sometimes. So yes, somebody raised their hand.
Yeah, it was me. Just a quick suggestion when dealing with friends, family members, anybody that you encounter with mental illness or that you are concerned about. Always be mindful that our suggestions as to getting them out of a funk can be harmful rather than hurtful. So please always be mindful when and thoughtful when dealing with or thinking about assisting somebody who you have, you know, you might think something's going on. I would always, in my best opinion, ask them if, you know, if they're not doing okay. Lend a listening ear versus being solution-based when it comes to somebody that is dealing with a mental health issue.
Yes, I agree. All right, awesome. So those are just a few tips to help with supporting others. And if you feel like you are dealing with any mental health problems, again, talk to a healthcare professional. I'll put a helpline on there where you can call and talk, and they can provide you resources. Connect with family and friends. I think that is very important. For me, I have 2 close friends. So whenever I am going through my depression or my ups and my downs mostly, I'll send them a text like, hey, this is going on. My mental state is not that good right now. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. Please check on me. But I mean, that took me a long time to get there. Everybody's not going to be able to be there, but going through what I've been through, that I don't want to ever get to my lowest low again. I try to be preventative. So I told those 2 friends like, hey, just check on me. If you don't hear from me within this amount of time, check on me. And they my close friends are amazing and they know everything about, you know, my journey of my mental health. So they're really good with helping me through that. And, you know, they know what to do. No, you know, we have a plan. I have a plan in place in case, you know, something goes awry. So again, that took me a long time to get there. But it's always beneficial to have, you know, some people that you can connect with that will support you and be there for you. And I put on there like join a support group. Maybe you're not ready to go to therapy. Maybe you're not ready for that. Maybe you just need somebody to see, you know, what other people are going through, to get some camaraderie, just to know that you're not alone and you're not the only one that can be dealing with something like this. And I think that is it. Yeah. And I'll have some resources at the end if you want to, if you want any more resources of like finding a therapist. If you need any other resources, I can post them as well. But feel free. I thank you guys for your time, for having me talk to you. I hope that you got at least something from this. I appreciate all you guys is taking your time to be here with us on Zoom land. But you know, feel free to unmute yourself, any ahas, questions. Go for it. Do you still have your hand raised, or you just that was old?
That was Leslie's
Thank
fault.
you. Thank you, Asia. It's an awesome webinar, and I hope that we
wonderful.
Wonder we can do it again, because it's really, really a discussion that's needed. And maybe the next time, you know, we can invite anybody that was on, can invite someone else that needs to hear this presentation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yes, Asia, thank you again. This is maybe the third time I've been to one of your sessions. I'll call it sessions.
That's fine.
But really, this is so needed. I thank you for the open space, and I encourage you to continue on what you're doing, because it is a blessing.
Yes, you did a great job.
Thank
you. Yes, blessings to all of you. I'll be praying for you. You lost your grandfather. Condolences to you. Loss of a husband, dealing with that, a child whose birthday is coming up. Sweet Javon, loved him so much. Yeah. And everyone who's going through trauma, grief, praying for us all through it.
Yeah, thank you so much, because so many of my family members are on, and not only family, but business family members I see are on too. Thank you all so much for joining us on today.
Thank you for sponsoring. Love you.
Love you too.
All righty. Thank you everybody for attending. I know we had some poll questions, so you guys, if you want to stay and hear the real answers, you can, or if you're ready to go, I understand. But I appreciate everybody who came and supports. Thank you guys.
Well, we'll be back next time, so you can do that poll since we missed it, or send it. I'm
gonna figure that poll out now. I'm really disappointed.
Is there any way to send the poll questions in advance?
Mm-hmm.
I probably could. I'll figure it out for next time.
You can do it one at a time.
That's what I meant to do, but.
And there's another way you can do it as well, if you want me to show you.
I Slido, right?
Something like Slido. It's something else, yeah, that I use over the summer with the kids, but it works very well.
Okay.
Who is that,
okay.
Lisa?
Is it
who is that talking just now?
Lisa. I'll be praying for you too. I'll be praying for you as well.
Thank you.
All right, ladies, y'all have a blessed rest of the week.
Have a great night. Take the love of Jesus with you.
Thank you.